that don't pay tax in our country. Now, some people might find Extinction Rebellion annoying. Fair enough. I support people's right to be peacefully annoyed at other people. But that doesn't make them terrorists or a threat to democracy. Murdoch's News International already has legal recourse against Extinction Rebellion activists. Like anyone else who's inconvenienced or experiences financial loss, they can sue. The law already gives them that power. They do not need to change the law. Serious organised crime is drug smuggling and forcing trafficked women into prostitution and murdering people. Technical pause. Given the level of violent crime that occurs in this country, I think there's a long list of people we need to deal with before we start criminalising protesters. Personally, I find right-wing journalists annoying. Those people who peddle racism and hate and division and xenophobia, and who denigrate the poor and the oppressed. I still wouldn't claim that Murdoch's News International is serious organised crime, even though the phone hacking scandal was, of course, serious, organised and criminal. When I was a ward councillor for Monuments, right here, our police liaison officers showed exemplary sensitivity and emotional intelligence when dealing with challenging members of the public. We know, though, that any organisation can have bad individuals in it, as we saw with Wayne Couzens and the rape and murder of Sarah Everard. And that's the age-old question asked by the Roman satirist Juvenal. Roughly translates that, who will police the police? Well, Home Secretary Priti Patel's response is that she shall police herself. This bill going through Parliament gives her the power to make new laws without new acts of Parliament and decide what should constitute illegal protest. The legislation will make serious annoyance illegal. A judge will be able to jail a person for up to 10 years. A police officer will be given powers to take such conditions as appear necessary to that officer to prevent order, disorder, damage, disruption, impact or intimidation. Did you notice the word impact snuck in there? What the hell is the point of a protest that has no impact? This legislation should be renamed the Father Ted Bill. Down with this sort of thing, careful now. That's all that's going to be allowed. It took until 2012 for the Hillsborough families to get justice for the 1989 tragedy. For years, senior police officers pressured, and the sitting government pressured ordinary line officers to lie and shift the blame. Just 7 miles down the road was Orgreave, site of another police cover-up blamed on the victims, with collusion of hostile elements of the media. In the 2019 election campaign, the Conservatives included a plan to outlaw people withdrawing their labour in protest over their pay and working conditions. It used the example of transport workers because that's key infrastructure, it said. There's about 1.5 million transport workers in this country, a workforce of over 30 million. But most workers could be categorised as essential under such a law. Health workers, education employees, refuse workers, retail workers, delivery staff, postal, telecoms. The right to withdraw your labour to strike is a foundation stone of a free society. Taking this away has a name. It's called forced labour. And the real trick that's being played on the British people here is this idea that protesters are separate from ordinary people. So to paraphrase Monty Python, what have protests ever done for us? Well, they've given us the right to vote. The suffragettes, all the protests over racism and discrimination and disability rights and gay rights, all of these have advanced the agenda. And trade unions. Trade unions were only decriminalised in 1875. And they were tied up with reforms to voting rights. For centuries, working people who didn't own land couldn't vote. Because if you didn't own part of the country, ran the argument, you got no say in its future. Today, most people don't get a say in how their workplace is run, because they don't own part of it. The fact is that it's their skill and their time and their energy that make the organisation function. Apart from that though, trade unions have only gained us paid holidays, maternity and paternity leave, paid sick leave, equal pay legislation, pensions, workplace anti-discrimination laws, ended child labour. Oh yeah, and gave us the weekend. It was unions that fought for a 5-day working week through protest that would be made illegal under this bill. Because that's what this is really about. As soon as protest hits the mega rich in their pockets, it's not allowed. The worrying thing is if the Tories implement this law, it won't be just XR who are targeted. Remember all those key workers we clapped for? Carers, bus drivers, shop workers, teachers, junior doctors, nurses, senior doctors, firefighters, delivery drivers, council workers, you know, all the people who actually run this country and make things happen, well, this law will be used to criminalise industrial action. Do you want to live in a country where anyone who threatens the interest of billionaires can face prison for 10 years? There are times when future generations look back after a country has slipped into tyranny and say, why did no one stop them? Well, this is such a moment. Our police officers and the people in the court system, they don't want to be destroying democratic process. Ordinary serving police officers want to keep people safe, to uphold the law, to protect the vulnerable from violence. This law will swing that pendulum back to the pre-Victorian era, using the criminal justice system as a tool of oppression. Have no doubt, this is about protecting the mega-rich and their cabinet cronies. It's about undermining the rule of law and replacing it with police-state corruption. Now, I'm a bit older than some of the younger protesters here. Way back in 1980, the Jam summed it up for me. You choose your leaders and place your trust as the lies wash you down and their promises rust. But not all politicians are the same. There are some, a small handful maybe, who do stay true. I'm not an MP, I don't get a vote in Parliament, but I will stand with you against this bill. It's offensive to everything I believe. The rule of law, freedom of expression, the civic duty to stand against those who would steal our freedoms and destroy our planet. But it needs more politicians than me. If you want to fight this, let's go beyond lobbying politicians whose lies wash you down as their promises rust. Join with me and fight back in an organised way, because these struggles are not going away, not as long as there are rich and powerful people who think there's one law for them and one for the rest of us. Let's stand together. Solidarity.
Solidarity, Jamie. Yeah, act now. All of those things. There's so much that is down to the right to protest, isn't it? We have a venal, corrupt government in place at the minute who shows disdain and contempt for ordinary working people. And the right to protest is at the heart of a democratic society. The 8-hour working day, as Jamie said, votes for women, the right to equal pay, and much, much more has been won through protest. So it's been really, really good to have Jamie here. Our next speaker is from the Green Party North East. Rachel, she was here one moment ago. Look, here she is. So please give a big round of applause for Rachel from North East Green.